Imagine you're having a wonderful conversation with a friend from another country. They're telling you an exciting story, but they keep using the word fun when they really mean funny. Do you stop them and correct their English, or do you just let it go? What is the invisible line between being helpful and being rude, and how do you know when you're about to cross it? Hi everyone, I'm Sarah, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a situation that almost every language learner and speaker has faced, and we'll learn some fantastic natural English to talk about it together. This question is something that comes up all the time. By the way, comes up is a useful phrasal verb. It means to be mentioned or talked about in conversation. For example, the topic of vacation came up at work today. It's a situation that can feel really awkward, and by awkward, I mean uncomfortable or causing embarrassment. For instance, there was an awkward silence when he asked about her age. So, you're in this conversation and you hear a mistake. Your first instinct might be to help. After all, if you were making a mistake, you'd want someone to tell you, right? But it's not that simple. The first and most important thing to consider is your relationship with the person. Is this a close friend who has specifically asked you for help with their English? Or is it a colleague in a meeting? Or even your boss? The context changes everything. You probably wouldn't point out your boss's grammar error in front of everyone. Point out is a phrasal verb that means to draw attention to something or someone. For example, she pointed out the mistake in the report. It just wouldn't be appropriate in that kind of professional setting. But with a good friend, someone you have a strong rapport with, the rules might be different. By the way, rapport means a good understanding of someone and an ability to communicate well with them. For example, she has a great rapport with her students. This really got me thinking about the unwritten rules of social interaction. We make these quick calculations in our heads without even realizing it. Is this the right time? Is this the right place? Will this person appreciate my help, or will I just make them feel bad? It's a delicate balance. So, let's say you've decided the situation is right. Your friend trusts you. You're in a private, relaxed setting, and you genuinely think your correction will help them. How do you do it gently, without sounding like a know-it-all? This is where the art of communication becomes really important. One of the best techniques is incredibly subtle. Now, subtle means not obvious or easy to notice. For example, there was a subtle change in his voice. The technique is called recasting, or echo correction. Instead of stopping the conversation and saying, "That's wrong," you simply repeat their sentence back to them, but with the correct grammar. For instance, if your friend says, "I have been to the cinema yesterday," you could respond naturally by saying, "Oh, you went to the cinema yesterday? What did you see?" You're not making a big deal out of it. By the way, make a big deal out of something is an expression that means to treat something as more important than it really is. For example, "It was a small mistake, don't make a big deal out of it." Another gentle approach is to turn the correction into a question. If someone says something like, "He is very good in playing guitar," you could ask, "Oh, you mean he's very good at playing the guitar?" This feels less like a direct criticism and more like you're clarifying what they said. It gives them the chance to realize the mistake themselves, which is often a more effective way to learn. It's a way of making a suggestion without being forceful. And a suggestion is an idea or plan that you offer for someone to think about. For example, he made a helpful suggestion about the project. A key part of this is empathy. I often find it helpful to share my own learning experiences. You could say something like, "That's a tricky one. I used to mix up those words all the time." The phrasal verb mix up means to confuse two or more things. For example, I always mix up the names of the two sisters. When you show that you also struggle with things, it creates a feeling of teamwork. And struggle with is a common collocation that means to find something difficult. For instance, many students struggle with phrasal verbs. It shows you're on the same team, not a teacher giving a test. This ensures you are both on the same page. By the way, on the same page is a popular idiom, and it means to have a shared understanding about a situation. For example, let's have a meeting to make sure everyone is on the same page. The goal is to be encouraging, not to discourage them from speaking. After all, making mistakes is an essential part of learning any new skill. So we know some good ways to help. But what about the times when you should absolutely stay silent? This is just as important. The number one rule is this: if someone is telling a story, especially an emotional or exciting one, do not interrupt them to correct their grammar. And interrupt means to stop someone from speaking by saying or doing something. For example, please don't interrupt me while I'm talking. The most important thing in that moment is the story and the connection you're sharing. Stopping them to correct a preposition will break the flow and might make them feel self-conscious and less willing to share in the future. Another time to avoid correcting is in a group setting. Correcting someone in front of other people can be deeply humiliating for them. And humiliating means making someone feel very embarrassed and ashamed. For example, losing the game so badly was a humiliating experience. Public correction often has the opposite effect of what you intend. Instead of helping, it can create resentment. Also, ask yourself, does the mistake actually matter? Does it prevent you from understanding what the person is trying to say? If your friend says, "I eated a pizza" instead of "I ate a pizza," you know exactly what they mean. In this case, it might be best to just let it slide. This is a great idiom, let it slide, which means to ignore something or to not take any action. For instance, he made a rude comment, but I decided to let it slide. If you can get the gist of their message, the tiny error is not important. By the way, get the gist means to understand the main idea of something without knowing all the details. For example, I read the email quickly and got the gist of it. And finally, if you don't know the person well, it's almost always better to say nothing. A correction from a stranger or a new acquaintance can come across as arrogant or rude, even if you have good intentions. Come across is a phrasal verb that describes the impression you give to people. For example, he comes across as a very serious person. It's best to play it safe and focus on the conversation. And the expression, "play it safe," means to be careful and not take risks. For example, I'm not sure what the weather will be, so I'll play it safe and bring a jacket. But now, what happens when the tables are turned? What should you do when someone corrects your English? This can be a surprising moment. It's easy to feel a little embarrassed or to get defensive. This collocation, get defensive, means to become angry or protective because you feel you are being criticized. For example, she got defensive when I asked about her decision. Your immediate reaction might be to feel a little bit annoyed, but try to pause and see it from a different perspective. Most of the time, the person correcting you is genuinely trying to help. They are offering you a piece of information that can help you improve. Instead of feeling bad, try to see it as a gift. The best response is a simple and gracious, "Oh, thank you. I didn't know that." Or, "Thanks for letting me know." This shows that you are an open and confident learner. Embracing corrections is a sign of a strong learning mindset. It shows you value progress over perfection. So, when it happens, try to take it on board. This idiom, take it on board, means to fully understand and accept a new idea or piece of advice. For example, the company took the customer's complaints on board and improved the product. It's a free English lesson after all. Ultimately, the question of whether to correct someone's English isn't really about grammar. It's about emotional intelligence. It's about understanding the other person, the situation you're in, and the true purpose of language, which is to connect with each other. A perfectly grammatical sentence with no feeling is less valuable than a broken sentence that comes from the heart. The goal should always be to build people up, not to put them down. And the phrasal verb, put them down, means to make someone feel stupid or unimportant by criticizing them. For example, you should never put someone down for making a mistake. Communication is, and always will be, more of an art than a science. In the end, it all comes down to empathy. Before you speak, ask yourself, will this help or will this hurt? The answer to that question will almost always guide you to the right choice. Thank you so much for joining me today.